This is the IDP After Show.
Hello and welcome to the IDP After Show, and I am not Jace Abbey. Jace is stepping away tonight, dealing with a little dental issue, but he'll be back next week for sure. So he asked me to step in, and I couldn't be more excited to be on tonight, especially when I found out that I get to be working with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Kyle Bellefeuil. Kyle, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. You are far too kind, man. That's mighty nice of you, Jeff. I'm doing good, man.
Good. I think you were like one of the first guests that I had on when I was running the IDP After Show, and then just kind of come full circle. So here we are again.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Been looking forward to it. You know, bummer Jace is dealing with an issue there. It's always a bummer, and I'm sure we'll get to catch up down the road, but always good chatting with you too, my man.
For sure. His loss is my gain. So
hey, look at us.
Yeah, look at us. So what we're going to do here tonight, Kyle's going to help me out. As is the case with every week, we're going to look at some of the best player matchups for the week at all three IDP positions. And we're going to look at some of the not so great matchups for IDP. And so in a minute or so, Kyle and I are going to offer up some of our nominations for week 8. We want to touch on one of the bigger issues of the weekend, though. Haason Reddick finally signed his long-term holdout. The Jets kind of waived all of the fines and penalties and stuff like that. So he's kind of practicing this week, and it sounds like he might be able to play this week. Kyle, where are you at with Haason Reddick this week and then maybe rest of the season?
Yeah, pretty interesting. I'm guessing Aaron Rodgers brokered that deal, hey? Trying to get this thing going.
But you got the head coach out of town. You got Devontae Adams there, so right?
Yep, let's get this thing rolling. Yeah, Reddick miraculously got this all figured out or whatever it sounds. And for this week, I mean, even if it does sound like he's going to be active and playing, I would think it'd be a pretty small sample. I typically err on the side of caution when it comes to situations like this. But I would definitely scoop him up off waivers if you have the room to see where this goes. I mean, I wouldn't roll him out this week unless you had nothing, because I don't feel too good about how many snaps he'll get if he does actually play. But I would definitely like to have him on my bench to see where it goes, to see if he can. You know, he's a talented dude, to see if he can get it going. And you know how hard it is to find edge rush help off the waiver wire, especially Jeff. You wrote the waiver wire. It's this time of year. It's slim pickings. So yeah, if Reddick's out there, I'm grabbing him to see where this goes. But how about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. And like you said, especially like losing some of the star-studded talent we've lost over the last few weeks, this year just seems to be just really, really hard with injuries. Like big name players are, having to try to replace, obviously the biggest one probably last week with Hutchinson. I don't think there's probably a bigger loss across the league for fantasy or for real football, really, to be honest. I mean, that really changed the scope of the NFC for sure, as they're going to the playoffs, so, and, Campbell said this week that they're trying to find some edge help, and there just really isn't anybody out there, so it's been a fun couple of weeks of trades. We got 2 weeks until the trade deadline. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? So
yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. The last few years, it's the trade deadline is more and more like prevalent, relevant, whatever. Like stuff happens now, So yeah, that's that Detroit edge unit. That's one to watch to see if they make a move, because like there's no replacing Hutchinson, right? Unless they do make the trade for Max Crosby. Everybody's trying to talk into happening, but that's such a big loss. Like you said, just changes things as a full scope for the NFC and the NFC North, because he's just such a dominant force.
You mentioned Max Crosby. What percentage do you put on that possibly even happening?
Oh man, I don't know. It's so hard to say, because like I know he's not happy, doesn't want to be in a rebuild, and I get that, but like, he's such a dominant force and a building block for a defense. I mean, I guess if somebody really wanted to pay up and they wanted to go in the tank for the year and rebuild or something, I don't know. I think it's small, but I guess I wouldn't be too surprised. How about you?
I put it really small, like you said.
Yeah.
Edge rushers in fantasy are tough to find. Edge rushers in the real NFL are even harder probably to find. And so you're replacing this like cornerstone player that you build around rather than trade away. And you're not going to find another Max Crosby, especially if Detroit trades away a pick, it's going to be late. You're not going to find that replacement player at the edge of the first round unless you really get lucky, so.
It's a great point. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So, well, let's get into the reason we're here tonight, Kyle. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at some player nominations. We've got 4 linebackers lined up, 4 defensive linemen, and 4 defensive backs, 4 of which, 2 of which we really like the lineups or matchups this week, 2 that we're not a big fan of. And we're just going to kind of talk about why we do or don't like them. So we're going to start off with everyone's favorite position, the linebackers. Kyle, who do you got as a linebacker to feast this week?
Okay, a linebacker I like this week is Mr. Jordyn Brooks out of Miami. Brooks started off slowly the first few weeks this year, but he's starting to pick things up a little bit. He had a big week 4 against Tennessee. He piled up 13 tackles, 9 solos, 2 tackles for loss and a sack. Followed that up with back-to-back 7 tackle outings in week 5 and 7. Week 7 coming out of Miami's week 6 bye. And with those 7 tackles in week 7, he also added a tackle for loss and a pass defense against Indianapolis. Brooks has a solid matchup in week 8 against Arizona, who are tied for 6th on the great John Macri's tackles allowed chart to linebackers. Shout out Macri. He's just such a beauty. Shout out Macri, man. You're the best.
I love those.
Arizona. Oh, yeah, the best, dude. Arizona is also top 5 in points allowed to the linebacker position via Footballguys scoring in our points allowed tool over there. So, thing kind of matches up there. David Long had been dinged up with a knee injury, but he was able to make it back and play in week 7 here this last week. While Long did don the coveted green dot there, he did end up losing a few snaps to Anthony Walker. So all that to say, meanwhile, Jordyn Brooks has played every snap through Miami's six games this season. So he's the dude that's out there. Might not have the dot, but he's out there every snap, which we love. So the matchup is solid. Brooks, has improved his on-field play this year when you're looking at his grades and the fact he's lowered his missed tackle rate to 8.9% after logging a career worst 16.5% last season. So matchup's good. He's been playing well. Things are starting to heat up a little bit. So I like Brooks this week. He's typically not in LB1 you're looking at, but if you're looking in your LB2 range and have some tougher decisions in that range, I think Brooks is got a good shot to give us some nice production this week.
I like this call too, not only because of all the things that you mentioned, but I think that offense kind of gets going again with Tua back.
Yes.
And the offense starts going. And we've seen that happen where as a competitive offense often helps the defense too, because the opposing teams need to run more plays to keep up. And we know that, Miami could be a very prolific offense. And if we can get going again, then this can only help the defense out. So I love this call. I really was a big fan of David Long this year, and he had a really good start to the season, but he just has been kind of disappointing. And Jordyn Brooks has been the linebacker for sure to own in Miami or roster this season. So,
yeah, man, no, it's a good call. I'm with you. I've been a Long guy as well. Like I've always had a soft spot for him, but yeah, it's hot and cold. But Brooks has been the stable force there this year, playing every snap, and he's been playing better and producing better lately. So, and the matchup's good. Like I said, you're looking at the tackles allowed by the position and the scoring allowed to position. So far this year, it all looks good for him this week. So let's get it.
Let's get it. Get Jordyn Brooks in your lineups.
Yeah.
So, a linebacker, it's weird this week. We've had all of these buys and all of these like London games and things like that going on. So we've had a lot of like mixing of lineups over the last couple of weeks. This week, we don't have any London games. We don't have any bye weeks. So it's a kind of a weird week 8 anomaly. And so when I'm looking at my lineup or who I want to look at promoting this week, I'm looking at not having any ifs, like Balin Spector, if Trail Bernard doesn't play. Chandler Wooten, if Josie Jewell or Claudin Charles doesn't play. Eric Wilson, if Quay Walker doesn't play. One guy that I know that has a clear path to snaps this week is Kenneth Murray. And, we kind of talked about, new faces and things like that. Kenneth Murray, in the wake of this Ernest Jones trade, the most recent Ernest Jones trade, Tennessee sent Ernest Jones to Seattle for Jerome Baker and a 4th. And so the reason I really like Kenneth Murray this week is probably going to take Baker a week or 2 to kind of get acclimated to the new defense. He might be a healthy scratch this week, which would obviously give Jack Gibbons a little run this week. But Murray's been the guy. He's clearly the linebacker that's going to be out there this week, regardless of if it's Baker's half the time, if it's Gibbons half the time. We know that Murray's going to be out there 100%. Murray also doesn't have a game this season with less than 6 tackles. And so he offers a really high floor. He's super consistent at scoring. The other thing is they got a fantastic matchup against Detroit. Detroit has just been super generous to the opposing linebacker position this season. I think they're top 5 at the moment. And the other thing is this game could get really sideways really early. They just traded DeAndre Hopkins away to Kansas City. They have Mason Rudolph is under center, I think. Will Levis is taking the week off to make a mayonnaise commercial, so he's not going to be there. And so this game could be a run-heavy game for a lot of the second half. And so Detroit in clock-killing mode, they could just be running out for most of the second half. And as we know, that's fantastic for our linebackers and their production. So give me Kenneth Murray all week long. I think he's going to have a fantastic week this week. So flipping over to our linebackers we're not fans of. Kyle, you got one, a former Green Bay Packer. I don't know if that makes you a little sour to say, or are you a little salty about this one? So who do you got?
So yeah, a little salty. My linebacker I dislike this week is Devondre Campbell. Campbell didn't have the best of final years in Green Bay, was a bit disgruntled. His play wasn't overly impressive. And I thought a change of scenery might help. And then Dre, moving on to San Francisco and Dre Greenlaw being out. And we liked his snap volume that he was looking lined up for. But it just hasn't been the case. He hasn't been able to really turn things around. Campbell has a career worst run defense and tackle grades so far. His run defense grades 45.5, tackle grades 40.7. To pair with a career worst 17.4% missed tackle rate, it's not been a very good first 7 games for Campbell so far. On top of the lackluster on-field play, Campbell is coming off a season low 70% snap share in Week 7, while D. Winters ate into his snaps, seeing his most involvement this season with a 56% snap share against the Chiefs. It seems Campbell is falling a bit out of favor at the moment, and I don't like linebackers in my lineup who are coming off a week where they ceded snaps if I don't have to, that is. So, yeah, it's just the play hasn't been great. Snaps went down this week. If I can avoid Campbell this week, I definitely would do so.
Yeah, and Dre Greenlaw's got to be one of those waiver wire guys pretty soon, to stash, because it's only a matter of time before he gets hopefully back on the field. I don't know how efficient and effective he's going to be, but he's definitely a player that's got to be, rostered at this point, especially with the woes, outside of Fred Warner, they've been kind of having a revolving door this year. So I love that call with that. Player that I'm going to recommend for not playing this year, this week, especially with the volume of other linebackers we have, not having any buys and things like that, is Denver Broncos linebacker Justin Strnad. Strnad, he's been amazing. Like, he's come in really well and filled in that Cody Barton role, and he's probably done better than Cody Barton did in that Cody Barton role. But Barton is definitely the linebacker to play every week and roster there in Denver. Strnad has been really good with his efficiency. He's been putting up decent numbers, but he's yet to play more than 80% of snaps in a game, which is really worrisome, because the efficiency is going to fall off at some point, and he's going to leave you with a clunker, and it's not just a matter of if it happens, but it's when it's going to happen. Last week we saw Quan Alexander finally show up, elevated from the practice squad. He came in, he had a couple of plays, 21 plays or something like that. He had a tackle, a fumble recovery, which should have been Strnad. So how much more is Quan Alexander going to continue to eat into this? With no buys this week, there's a lot of better options, I feel. The Broncos get the Panthers this week. Andy Dalton was in a car accident this week. Bryce Young is going to be back under center. There's no height jokes there, but he's going to be under center. And who knows what that offense is going to look like this week. So I'm not going to take my chances with Strnad. So he's going to be my bench. He's going to be hopefully packaged in a deal and traded away. So we'll see how the week goes. It's early.
No, I like that call, man. I like Strnad. Going back to his college days, he was one of those guys, late round linebackers I was stashing. He's had some nice games, right? But yeah, matchup's not great, and Quan Alexander for some reason sees the field. I don't understand it, but yeah. And you make a great point.
Lazarus, man, he just never goes away. He never dies. He just keeps coming back.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And you did make a great point. With no bye weeks this week, hopefully you have other options.
Yeah. He might be a bye week fill-in as we go forward, if the injuries continue to pile up, but he's just not sexy. So we can find a better name. So
yeah, we don't like worrying about snaps,
Speaking of sexy, let's flip over to the defensive lineman. And Kyle, who is a defensive lineman that got you all hot and bothered this week?
Will the Thrill McDonald for the Jets is my guy this week. Yeah, what a breakout second season it's been for Will McDonald. 8 sacks over 7 games so far this year. Pretty awesome. From a pass rush standpoint, McDonald has a 15.9% pressure rate on top of those 8 sacks and a 73.0 pass rush grade. So his pass rush metrics are solid, no doubt. But his run defense needs some work, to say the least. He gets after the quarterback. That's what this guy does, right? McDonald gets a poor New England offensive line this week, who have surrendered 25 sacks on the season. New starter, rookie Drake May, has taken 8 of those over his 2 starts and 3 games total played. McDonald has already given the Patriots offensive line fits. He had 2 sacks against them back in week 3. So he knows what's up against a division rival. While McDonald might cool down at some point, he has a 3-game sack streak going, and I think he stays hot, making it a 4-game streak after week 8 is over.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. So,
yep.
So as we already kind of mentioned the Jets earlier, Kyle, do you think having Hassan Reddick, that can only help McDonald, right? Having another pass rush on the opposite side, drawing more attention, offensive coordinators maybe have to chip, or send a tight end to that side, with the Hassan Reddick. That can only help McDonald, right?
Yeah, I would think, man, you got more guys getting pressure and more guys that they have to go out of the way to scheme for, like you said, whether it's chip help or whatever, like they have to worry about. You got to think it helps McDonald, because, I mean, he's the guy they got to worry about right now as far as protecting the quarterback. And Michael Clemens is fine, deep league guy and stuff, but yeah, Reddick's a different problem, I think. So if he can get it going, that's I think that's a good thing for him as well. It's a good point.
Yep. Good call. I like that one. And like you said, he's on a 3-game sack streak. So, we've seen players like this just kind of continue to go on those runs, and they see the game slows down for them. The ball's bigger, whatever it might be, but we'll go with it.
Stay hot.
So this is kind of a layup one. And I feel bad even mentioning this, but this is a player who has been kind of underperforming the last few weeks. He was definitely a player you've invested heavily in to acquire him. This might be a great buy low window on a Mr. TJ Watt, just because he hasn't been the TJ Watt we've expected. He's only has 1 sack in the last 4 games. And so he's only has 1 pressure in the last 72 pass rush attempts too over the last 2 games. And he gets a great matchup this week versus the Giants. The Giants, like you mentioned, like the Patriots, give up a ton of sacks. I don't know if Daniel Jones has a bet with, opposing defensive coordinators, how many sacks he can give up, but he's been pressured like 100 times this year, 3rd most of any quarterback. And he hasn't been playing every snap either. And he's still giving up a lot of pressure. He got benched last week. Who knows what that team is going to be like this week. And to make matters worse, they just sent Andrew Thomas, an offensive tackle, to IR. So, the weak spot on the team only got weaker, and playing against TJ Watt, he's hungry, he's looking to kind of break the funk that he's in. So, maybe send a trade offer out to the manager of TJ Watt and just see if where they're at, because, they obviously are expecting a lot from this player and he hasn't been performing well. So I think TJ Watt finds a way to get it back on track this week.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I like that call, right? He's not quite been what, most managers have hoped, but a healthy TJ Watt is going to be a problem. It's just a matter of time. And the matchup is spicy, to say the least, like you said. So yeah, I like it. I like the call. Like you said, you might take. You're saying you took a layup here, but you also are throwing the idea in of going to get him if you can. You could get him at a pretty fair price. I think that's a great idea. I like this call, man.
Appreciate that. Thank you, bud.
You bet.
Thank you. So continuing your saltiness against Green Bay Packers or ex-Green Bay Packers, got a defensive lineman you're not a fan of this week. Who you got here?
Yeah, this hurts, but I'm hating on my own team. Preston Smith for Green Bay. Preston Smith was a guy I thought we could get one more year of steady production out of. He was a guy I was grabbing late in drafts, so it's kind of touting as a value early on before drafts were taken off. But While Preston Smith's never been flashy, he's been consistent with at least 8 sacks in each of the last 3 seasons. However, this year, outside of his 2-sack outing against Tennessee, which, take advantage of that one, against Tennessee in week 3, Smith just hasn't been getting it done on a weekly basis for us. Through 7 games, Smith has a career worst 55.1 pass rush grade, just a 6% pressure rate with just 9 total pressures on the year. Like, not great. Smith has typically given us some kind of tackle floor. He's hovering around the mid 40 to 50 tackle range for the season. And currently he has just 15 stops and is on pace to fall short of the 40 tackle mark this year. So that's just not been the case. Smith has only eclipsed a 60% snap share in 3 games this season as Green Bay likes to rotate in Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare to keep things fresh off the edge. So while they get Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, who's taken a few sacks, 15 on the year, Jacksonville's at the bottom of the beautiful John Macari's tackle chart allowed 2 defensive linemen. So Smith is likely only an option in deeper leagues where you start 3 to 4 defensive linemen. However, given his poor pass rush metrics and lack of tackle floor and the matchup not being great as far as that end goes, even the tackle end that is, I'd look elsewhere if he can. And I believe he's been labeled a player who is available for trade or rumored to be available for trade. I don't know if you saw that, Jeff, but I didn't read. That is
interesting. A team that is doing as well as the Packers are, you would think they'd want to keep the chemistry going and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in a year where we've seen so many injuries, keep them away from teams that don't have them. It's kind of would be a mindset. But if they can get a piece to help them later on, I'm all for it. If they can get a piece to move on, help them advance finally this year past the championship round. Do you think Preston Smith is a victim of father time? Do you think it's other players like you mentioned? You mentioned Kyle Van Ness stepping up. You've mentioned, is it a combination of things? What do you think the outlying factor is?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things. I just think, maybe it's a little father time, and maybe that paired with the new scheme being that 4-3 base, and, he being more of a 3-4 guy most of his career and being more comfortable there. So maybe the transition just hasn't been as smooth as we had hoped there. And he's getting up there. It's a good point too, Jeff. It hasn't been ideal. I thought we had one more year of that steady late round value production you could get out of him. Like I said, he'd hover around the 40 tackle mark, mid 40s, whatever, give you 8 sacks. It's nice to get late in drafts, right? Especially when leagues we play in where you start 4 defensive linemen, but he just hasn't outside of the 1-2 sack week against Tennessee, just hasn't been great. And you don't have much of a tackle floor to even help supplement for the lack of sacks that sack production we're getting. So yeah, I think it's just a combination of everything. And then the young guys, they're not, like Van Ness and Enagbare are kind of starting. The numbers aren't eye popping they're putting up, but if we watch the games, they're creating some havoc. They get a little more juice,
So what's Rashawn Gary's issue then?
I don't know, man. He picked it up this last week, which was good to see.
He did.
Hopefully that gets a jump started for him because it's not been ideal, man. I was going to ask you the same. Where are we at with Gary? What are we thinking? Because I've been sticking up for that guy. I'm a Michigan guy, Michigan fan, Packer fan. It's just, I thought this year he was really going to take off, and it's been a slow go, but hopefully this last week
he looked so good at the end of last season. He started to come around, and then, off season, the video montages that they would share out, he just looked like a man possessed, and it was like, this is the season, this is it. And then it's like, wah, wah, wah. It just hasn't been there. It's just like,
we're just not allowed to have nice things, Jeff. That's the deal.
But at least we've had 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row, right? So I guess better than.
I take it back. I can't complain. I can't complain like that. You're right. You make a good point. I'm just going to zip it from here.
All right. Well, a player that you do like and you think is going to be a stud this week, who you got for your defensive back that you're a fan of?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of Mr. Grant Delpit from Cleveland. Delpit missed week 6 due to a concussion, but returned to the Browns defense in week 7, yet producing 5 solo tackles and a quarterback hit against Cincinnati. Delpit slid right back into his box role, playing 41 of his 54 snaps up in the box and slot areas. On the year, Delpit has played 83.6% of his snaps up in the IDP sweet spot box slot defensive line, which is what we love for our defensive backs in IDP, right? That's what we look for, right up near the action. So yeah, Delpit's got that beautiful roll there. And in week 8, Delpit goes up against Baltimore, who were 6th entering this week on the beauty John Macri's tackles allowed chart to the safety position. The matchup looks nice. And the matchup and the roll both line up to Delpit, giving us a solid IDP outing this week. Delpit's a guy I was targeting because of this box roll and Schwartz's defense. And he came back, right? We missed a week, came back and had a nice game, and the matchup's nice. And we like him up. We like our DBs up near the action. That's where he spends a lot of his time. So.
Yep. And I love this call too, because the linebackers have been kind of hit hard in Cleveland. Jordan Hicks missed some time. We had JOK as like the only for sure guy. And I think they like Delpit is that next guy up near the line of scrimmage. So no pun intended.
Absolutely.
I like that. Get him in your lineups. A D-back that probably was available in a lot of leagues as recently as probably 2 or 3 weeks ago is my guy this week is Evan Williams for the Green Bay Packers. Since he became a full-time safety in the last couple of weeks, he has 9 tackles last week. Over his last 3 games, he has 21 combined and a forced fumble. I know he gets the Jags this week, and the Jags probably aren't the most favorable matchup to safeties in terms of tackle production, but I still like Williams a lot because, like you mentioned, he plays up near the box. He's getting a lot of those line of scrimmage tackles, things like that. But Jacksonville has been a little bit more balanced over the last couple of weeks. They've been running the ball more with Tank Bigsby, and they've had more sustained drives. And so I think that gives, we look at the data, and it's like 7-8 weeks of data. But if we look at like the last couple of weeks of data from Jacksonville, they look like a more complete offense. Whether they're getting healthy, Evan Ingram is back. I think they just are a different team than they were week 1, week 2, week 3. So I know that the stats don't lie, but I think the more recent stats say that Jacksonville's probably a little bit better matchup than we are giving it credit for. And so, like you said, we want our defensive backs near the line of scrimmage. Evan Williams has been that. What a year Green Bay had for their secondary. Like looking at what we had last year and what do we have this year? We had a tremendous draft, getting Bullard and now Williams in the draft. We signed Xavier McKinney in free agency. Like, what a facelift this secondary has gotten for the Packers this year. So yeah, let's get Evan Williams in there. Let's have a good week.
Yeah, dude, I like this call, right? Evan Williams has been really good when he's out there, and he's tough to keep off the field now. And I just want to say, like, when Jair was out, Evan Williams popped that first game, as the whole secondary got shifted with Stokes and Nixon was typically the nickel, and Jair's out, so you had Nixon and Stokes on the outside, Bullard playing the slot, Evan Williams going to safety. We didn't know what would happen when Jair came back. Well, it was Stokes that got the boot, and Nixon stayed outside. Bullard went in the nickel, and Williams was in. And then this last week, Bullard, lost a few snaps, from the previous week. But Evan Williams, he's a dude that pops when he's on the field. I don't know about you, man, but the Arizona game on that zone read when he came up and had outside contain, and Murray pulled it thinking he had the edge, and instead of crashing down hard like most rookies you would think probably would, just getting over aggressive, he held his outside contain and took down Kyler Murray. I'm like, dude, that is a play. So that play, that was just like, he does stuff like that. You're just like, oh, this guy's good.
Yeah, it's not like you're taking down Flacco. I mean, you're taking down probably one of the more elusive. So no. And I'm almost wondering if Evan Williams' ascension has kind of led to, I know that Keyshawn Nixon was a huge buy this season because of the return yards and the way he produced last season with the tackles. I wonder if that's almost kind of capped Keyshawn Nixon, his role this season, because of what they found in Evan Williams here. Yeah, no, it's like you laid it out, man. Like, what a revamped secondary, right? They found a few gems. They signed McKinney. Just unreal. What a turnaround. Yep. Things you love to see. Love to see it. Kyle, we can have nice things. We can have nice things. We are allowed. I retract the statement. Yeah. All right, good. So let's flip it. Who's a player that you're kind of out on this week, and why are you feeling like that? So my DB I'm out on this week is the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. Mathieu started the year well, posting solid tackle numbers and grabbing interceptions in week 2 and week 3. However, his production has slowed of late with just 14 tackles and no splash plays over his last 4 games.
Alignment wise, Mathieu has spent 59.3% of his snaps deep at free safety, and the other 40% ish up in the sweet spot. So a bit more time deep than we'd like, as far as alignment goes. The Honey Badger is a playmaker, but he just hasn't been giving us those big plays to help supplement his low tackle outputs lately. So Mathieu has a less than ideal matchup against the Chargers in Week 8, who are near the bottom in tackles allowed to the safety position and are dead last in points allowed to the position on the Footballguys points allowed tool. So it's not a great matchup paired with meh production lately. I'd look for other options if you can. And the safety position, there's a lot of options out there. And you made the point earlier. It's a great point. There's no teams off this week, no bye. So hopefully you got somebody with a little bit better matchup who's been a little bit more productive lately.
And there's so many players that are playing 100% of snaps, and that's all about volume. Volume, we just keep preaching that volume is king, and it really is. And if, with no one on a bye, like you mentioned, like we can find someone that's in the box. We can find that 100% guy. So, don't play the if game, especially at defensive back. So,
yep, absolutely. Great point.
Yeah. So my if guy this week is Vonn Bell. His snap share is slowly diminishing. He's losing snaps to Jordyn Battle. Jordyn Battle has played 8 snaps, 14 snaps, and 19 snaps over the last 3 games. I know that's not huge, but every snap that he plays is one less that Vonn Bell is out there for. He's slowly eating away at Bell's snap count. The Eagles, which we would think would be a great offense, are kind of a bad matchup for opposing safeties in terms of tackle production. So we have a player who's losing snaps. We have a not so great matchup, and those are all reasons I'm thinking just to fade Vonn Bell. One little caveat side note here is that Geno Stone is kind of on the injury report. So there's a chance that Vonn Bell would play, but like we said, don't play the if game with, if you're playing like, if he can do this, especially at the secondary position, there's no reason to play the if game. But we want for sure answers. Like you said, you play your studs and you play guys that and Week 8 we can't be taking chances. Like this, that you're on the cusp of either being a team that's in the playoffs or out of the playoffs, and this is a pivotal week for a lot of teams. If you're 4-3 or 3-4, this is I don't want to say it's a must-win week, but this is a big week for a lot of teams and leagues. So no ifs here.
No, absolutely, dude. I'm totally with you. And Bell hasn't been lighting it up or anything to where he's really, sticking out where you got to get him in. And the defensive back position. You make a great point. If you're worried at all playing the if game, don't do it with defensive back. The options are there, especially if you're playing a DB group format. You can find some slot corners, guys with a better floor. And if you're worried, like you said, that you can find a guy that's a little playing that slot role or plays a little bit more time up tight in the box, even whatever. They feel a little bit more comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with the guy in a week where no teams are on bye, especially at the defensive back position, don't play the if game. I'm with you, man. Especially now.
Go visit Johnny the Greek's. Yeah, Johnny the Greek's streaming the cornerback thing. Like the guy is like 140% accuracy. I don't know how he does it, but he never misses. The guy is So he'll
set you up. Johnny will take care of you.
Yeah.
Johnny will take care of you. If you got any problems, go see Johnny.
Tell him Kyle sent you. Tell him Kyle sent you.
Yeah, exactly. I got a referral program with Johnny.
I don't know if we're supposed to say that on air, but
okay.
All right.
My bad.
So, Kyle, this has been awesome, man. I just appreciate you coming on and taking the time. I know that you were probably looking forward to seeing Jace, but I appreciate you jumping on. Love bantering back and forth with you. This is it just flows. So that's going to wrap it up for us here tonight. Kyle, what are you working on right now, and where can the good folks find some more of your work?
Yeah, first off, thanks a lot, Jeff, man. It's always fun hanging with you and talking ball and just catching up, brother, man. This was awesome once again. Like you said, it's always a great time. All my work, you can find it over at footballguys.com. I write the IDP waiver wire report. It's not article form. It's a tool on the website. And as well, I started doing the IDP rest of season projections a few weeks ago. So that's kept me pretty dang busy here trying to keep up with the injury apocalypse and who's playing and who's not. So that's been fun. So, so I've been pretty busy over there, and you can find me over there in the Twitter streets. I don't post a whole lot, but I'm around. If you shoot me a message, I'm more than happy to try to help if I can. So
awesome stuff, Kyle. Appreciate that and all that you're working on. To our audience, thanks for checking us out this week. We appreciate you, and we hope you found this useful. Good luck in your Week 8 matchups. Jace will be back next week to take care of you in getting ready for Week 9. So once again, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Have a great week, and we'll catch up with you next time.
This was the IDP After Show.